All right, I am live. Welcome into my Fieldhouse Files live post-game show. What a game. I expected it to be an electrifying series, but I didn't expect us to have to go through another comeback like that to see that from the Pacers to get it done. I apologize for the delay. I know some of you have probably been in here for a little bit. You want to know how delayed the game was? I originally set this tentatively at like 11:15 p.m. Then it went to overtime. Then the craziness happened. Then some post-game press conferences were just wrapping up. And so just getting on here well after midnight here now officially on Thursday. But the Pacers come back and get it done tonight in overtime. 138-135 was the final. This team is now 6-1 in overtime sessions this season. So they've been very positive from that standpoint. And as they started to make that run there in the fourth quarter, were you like me and just sitting back and saying, well, here they go again? And then at that point, you're not doubting anything that they can do there late in the game, because they've shown time and time again that while they shouldn't put themselves in that situation, while they shouldn't be trailing, 17 points midway through the fourth quarter, they were down 119-105 with 2:51 left. They were even down by 9 in the final minute. They came their way back. And how about Aaron Nesmith, man? A 20-point fourth quarter, 6 of 7 from three-point range. He just kept hitting and hitting and hitting, and was huge for this Pacers team to get it done, to take game one. Much different than last year. Last year it was the Knicks taking game 1 and 2. Then the Pacers won 4 of the next 5 games. So yeah, it was just incredible. 121-112 was the score with 58 seconds left. And from there, they went on to win the rest of the way. Just a remarkable effort by this Pacers team to get it done. And now they're just 3 wins away from the NBA Finals. Let's get to some of your comments before I carry on. I know it's probably late where many of you are, maybe throughout the United States and across the globe. It's not too bad. Wow, wow, wow. Yep, that's absolutely right. Indy Joe in Orlando, another Pacers classic Knicks game. So glad the Pacers won after an unbelievable comeback. Yeah, it was a remarkable one, to be sure. They're not going to make it easy for you Pacer fans at all. The fact that they got down by 17, they're late. How about that start, by the way, right? So it was an incredible start. Made their first 9 shots, but then an even better finish, an epic finish to force overtime. The only thing that probably would have been better was for Halliburton's toe to be behind the arc. And then for that celebration to stand, the game-winning three-pointer. He does the choke sign directly at Reggie. He's in the Garden. His teammates mob him. That was a fantastic moment for that entire team, but especially for Halliburton, who, again, he's a WWE guy. This was on his radar, and he was planning to pull it out in the right moment. Now, unfortunately for him, the timing wasn't great because he had the toe on the line. He said post-game he heard somebody say it's a 2, so that's why he kind of backed off a little bit. And then they ultimately got it done in the overtime session, outscoring them by 3. I thought Obi Toppin was really good in his limited minutes there late in the game. I thought it was interesting how Rick Carlisle changed things up midway through the fourth. The team got down by 17. He moved. Miles Turner basically was in the bench the final 15 minutes or so. I guess it'd be about final 17 minutes or so. And Toppin was in there. Ben Shepherd played huge in his 7 minutes or so out there, as well as they just wanted a different vibe. They wanted different guys out there and got it going. Flamekeepers, 14-point deficit, super easy, barely an inconvenience. Yeah, based on what we've seen this team do so far this season, 14's not too bad. They've had a couple of those 20-point comebacks. Speaker from the dead. Wow, they keep finding a way. They do. And I think this is a tribute to having this consistency and continuity with this group. They've been through the lows. They've been through the highs. They've seen what it takes to get to this level. And now they are at this level, right? How much did we talk to them about trying to play in meaningful games last season? That seemed like every conversation. You went to the NBA Cup. Here's your first meaningful game. You made it to the semifinals of the NBA Cup. Well, here you go. Here's an even more meaningful game. Then they made it to the postseason for the first time with this group. All right, that matters. They won a playoff series for the first time in franchise history in a decade. All right, here you go. This team has climbed the ladder together. They have experienced those lows, and now so many highs are coming together as a group. And I think that's why you saw this front office especially lean in to giving this group another chance. Because remember, the Pacers weren't completely themselves last year. Not at all. Halliburton, I'm not sure he was 70%. Mathurin wasn't available. Other guys were a little beat up. So that's why I like the fact, guys, that going into this series, the teams were mostly healthy. Obviously, Isaiah Jackson out. He's missed the entire season after suffering that torn Achilles 10 days into the season. But outside of that, both teams are relatively healthy, and that's exactly what I want. I want a good series. I want a chess match. I want fascinating tweaks that both teams will make. Like we saw, was it right before halftime, I think, where both teams made some different substitutions. DeLon Wright going in there for 26 seconds. Cameron Payne playing 9 minutes, almost 10 minutes. Didn't necessarily expect all that. So a lot of fun. PJ's in Evansville. That game was beyond unbelievable, he says. Best playoff game I've ever witnessed. How young are you? That's the best game you've ever witnessed? All right. Strong feeling they could get 2 and come back to Indiana 2-0 again. Talking about Cleveland, obviously, like they did there. That one's for Jim. Yeah, I mentioned that in my story. Just a tough day for Indy sports fans. So many notable things. You had the Roger Penske firing 3 members of his staff, key members of his staff with Team Penske, notably Tim Cindric, the strategist, after what went on during qualifying this past week. Then right before tip-off, the Colts are making official that Jim Irsay, at 65 years old, had passed away in his sleep in the afternoon. And then, if you believe in that kind of thing, you got to believe, right, when Halliburton's shot goes in the air and bounces up like 10 feet, maybe a little tap in by Irsay to push that to overtime and then let them handle the rest. But nonetheless, just a wild – I got to imagine what Indy Sports Radio will be like tomorrow. Now, I will be on the morning show with KB and the crew. Normally I'm on at 8:30 in the morning. That is being pushed back to 9:30, I believe, because of the Irsay news, and that'll probably get the biggest attention. But that said, what a day for the Pacers, able to get it done. And here before midnight, just wrapping up post-game interviews and such at Madison Square Garden after their 138-135 win over the Knicks. All right, let's get through some more of these comments. A lot of them I want to catch up on. Ewerlingus, Fever made me watch Pacers. Hey, there you go. Whatever crossover needed, the Pacers and Sports Entertainment will take that. Lindy's excited. Jinsey, have a good show. Appreciate that. Maybe it's a little past your bedtime, so you're not on with us. I agree with that, Clement. This is such a Pacers type of win. It sure is. It's what we've come to expect, really, with this team. I thought they were dead in the water there midway through the fourth quarter after they got down by 17. They weren't playing well. They had missed 7 straight shots, and almost more interesting than that was we saw the Knicks go on, what was it, a 16-1 run, and that was with Jalen Brunson out. He had just picked up his 5th foul with 10 minutes left in regulation, and that's when they went on the run. That was wildly surprising to me. So a huge moment in the game right there, and then they just hung around, got some stops. Aaron Nesmith went on a heat check like he's never been on before. I think his career high this season was about 30 points. He had 30 tonight, 20 of them, in that fourth quarter, including 6 threes, just one after another. In that final 5 minutes, Nesmith was knocking them all down. Yeah, MK, Scott is trying to make sense of what we all witnessed again. Why the delay is what you're getting at. Well, you have to Control-Alt-Delete and start anew after all those sequence of events. By that point, after an incredible fourth quarter and overtime, I don't think many Pacer fans care to read, in the second quarter there, looking back, there was a 13-1 Knicks run with the Knicks shooting 55%. I'm just deleting all that and getting going. The other big thing I thought was notable, let me know what you guys think, is how, especially in that first half, I thought that the Knicks did better than expected hanging in with the Pacers at their pace, the style in which they want to play, all those sorts of things, those big question marks many people had coming into this game. I thought the Knicks handled it just fine. I thought they really did. It did not seem to be much of a concern. Now, in this one, Josh Hart, 44 minutes, 46 minutes. Mikal Bridges, Brunson, who missed a lot of the game because of foul trouble, still played 37 minutes. So those are some of the key numbers we'll be watching throughout this series, this 2 weeks, because we fully expect for this Knicks core, the starters, to play significant minutes, maybe average about 40 minutes per game, where on the other side, Rick Carlisle is trying to keep his guys to about probably 35 minutes or less in an ideal world. Futuristic, that was one of the worst choke jobs I've ever seen. There was some of that, but how much of it also was just the Pacers going and taking it? They knocked down shots. I thought there was countless times where the Knicks almost turned it over, but managed to keep it in play, managed to have a sequence that just worked out for them. I think Brunson was falling into the lap of a fan and bounced it, and it landed in a Knicks player's hand. So it could have been much worse for this Knicks team, but that was a brutal collapse there after they started the fourth quarter strong. They were outscored by 3 in that final quarter, and it was just a remarkable final 3 minutes, final 1 minute for the Pacers. Anything that could go wrong kind of did there for the Knicks. I mean, you go back to missed free throws. We talked about it last night with the Indiana Fever. They missed 10 free throws in a game. They lost by 1. Well, in this one, the Knicks missed 12 free throws, 28 of 40. They make 1, they win in regulation. OG Anunoby, how about him? He went to the line with 7.3 seconds left, missed the front end and made the second. That gave the Knicks a 2-point lead instead of 3. Now, obviously, I thought it was interesting that Halliburton initially tried to attack, wanted to attack, but then backed it out, went to the top of the arc, still a foot on the line, but clearly was going for the win with the 3. You make half those free throws they missed, the 12. You make 6, it's not even a contest. They're late in the game. Pacers, by the way, 21 of 28. I also want to dispel this notion about the officials. I didn't think they were awful or anything like that. I had several fans, Pacer fans, in my mentions saying it's not the Pacers playing poorly, it's the officials. What is this officiating? I don't believe that at all. Sure, there were some missed calls. And by the way, underrated play in this game was how the coaches handled their challenges, right? We saw Tom Thibodeau burn his, I think, in the first half. It was brutal. It was a bad one. Lost it. And in the second half, late in the game, this is why you save your challenges, not only past the first half, but towards late in the game, because there were 2 sequences, including one, I think, with 20 seconds left. It would have been OG Anunoby going to the free throw line for 2 shots, and instead it was Pacers ball after the call was overturned, a successful challenge. So well done to Pacers behind the bench, to Mike Weiner giving the thumbs up for Rick Carlisle to utilize that. But I thought the challenges, man, those were almost as important as Aaron Nesmith shooting the Pacers back into this one. Knicks were down 14 at one point. They were. Yeah, it was 119-105 I have on my chart with 2:51 to go. At that point, I posted the ESPN analytics. It was like a 99.7 chance that the Knicks won, and they didn't. A lot more comments. What radio dial am I on tomorrow? Jincy's asking. That's 107.5 The Fan, 93.5 here in Indianapolis. So look up 107.5 The Fan. It's with the morning show, Kevin Bowen and company. So that will be, I think, at 9:30 unless they move it again. I'm normally on every Thursday at 8:30, by the way, in case you did not know. Pacers feels like it's just meant to be. I don't know if it's that. I think it's one of those where the Pacers have dug themselves out of the mud, and I'm talking big picture, that they've been through the worst. They've been through those tough losses. They've lost to Charlotte by 30 points. They've experienced a rebuild. They were in the lottery for 3 straight years. You build calluses through all of that. And so running it back with this team with a healthier Halliburton and Mathurin able to play, I think that's much more what it is, much more than fate or this team's due or anything like this. I think it's this Pacers team, their belief in one another, their continued ability to fight, the coaching staff making opportune decisions that work out more times than not, and it fared well for this team. What's up, Matt? Thanks for joining. He says the best Pacers postgame show out there and the man who never appreciate it, buddy. Yep, Pacers Fever, Indy 500. Yeah, you basically spelled out my weekend here coming up with Pacer game, with Fever. They have a road game Thursday at Atlanta, home game Saturday afternoon. That's in the middle of the 500 Festival Parade. And then Sunday, game 3 at 8 p.m. Sunday night at the Fieldhouse. Ball's life, absolutely crazy. The Knicks are still in this game with the Pacers starting at that shooting rate for sure, but it was also the Pacers weren't defending. That was something I didn't have time to get in or kind of deleted in my recap is defensively wasn't very strong. And so that's why, they were only up, actually down by 2 at the end of the first quarter. It was a sequence where despite them making their first 9 shots, playing well, seeing things go down, and the pace being played at their tempo, they were still trailing and not in a great spot because of all that. So I think they had to feel decently well about it, but they should have been in front there at the end of the first quarter. And by the way, doesn't that second quarter seem like a week ago at this point, after all we just watched and been through, and now we got to watch it back again tomorrow, obviously? That's one for the ages right there. That's an instant classic. That's one that NBA TV's got to show tomorrow. I hope somebody puts it on YouTube for all those fans out there to watch again. But it was definitely a crazy one. Drew says, I really expected to see more efficient Pascal tonight. I really thought his last month's struggles were lack of legs, but a week off, still struggled with his shot. I would agree. I expect a better Pascal as well. He's also a guy, though, that eases into things. And so I think he had just a couple buckets at halftime. And by the end of it, finished with 17. To me, for the Pacers to win this series, he really needs to average 22 points per game, maybe have a 30-point game, mostly get over 20 points per game. To me, that's what you need out of your all-star, your all-NBA forward from Pascal. And so I would agree. And I think he would probably tell you the same thing, that he's got to up his game on the offensive end and be more vocal, be more demanding of the basketball. What's up, Kimono? I think it is. The Knicks got tired at the end. I ain't complaining, though. There you go. Yeah, it made for an interesting one, and that's going to be the style in which the Pacers want to play. They want to wear the Knicks down, both in the game, also in the series. That's the way in which they're going to be able to earn the trip to the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. We know their playbook. It's whether they can execute it and get it done and play all 4 quarters. And this one, they didn't play all 4 quarters. But what mattered is they played an incredible final 3 minutes to regulation. It really was. It's funny to me that many people will blame the Knicks loss on, well, they got tired. Yeah, no kidding. That's the Pacers super for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. This is a team, and I've talked about this on previous lives. It's not just this year or last year. It was like 3 years ago when in training camp, Rick Carlisle, his staff, the players were talking about, we want to be in incredible shape, tip-top shape. We want to be able to outlast and outrun everybody out there. And so, again, that's why I don't view this win as like a fate thing. I think this is a moment they've been preparing for 3 years. Now, you don't want to have to need it and come back, down by 9 in the final minute. But that said, I mean, how many teams would get emotional or get caught up in doubt and frustration that they can't even get shots off? And how about this? In the fourth quarter, here's probably my favorite stat from tonight's game. The Pacers turned it over just 7 times in this game, not once in the fourth quarter. 0 turnovers when it matters most right there. That means you got shots off. You maximized your offensive possessions. You strung together defensive stops. I thought that was remarkable. And then on top of that, to compound it from a positive standpoint, Knicks only had 15 turnovers, but to which the Pacers converted into 27 points. So in addition to the Knicks leaving 12 points on the line, I think that was the other telltale stat from this game. Do I see a role for Jarris Walker getting a few minutes against Bridges, Hart, and Anunoby? I love what he did I love what the Pacers did throwing multiple bodies at Brunson. Think Walker could have similar energy to what Shep did. I think you'll try him. You do. I think that's one of the tweaks, one of the chess moves that you can try, throwing a bigger body, length, athleticism. Challenges, he hasn't been in these moments. So is the stage too big? How does he react? It's one of those, maybe if you're down late in the game, that's where you really want to get him some minutes. But there is a curiosity, I will acknowledge, to see what Jarris looks like, especially when this Pacers team plays the smaller lineups, right? Like they did to finish the game with basically Shepard and Toppin in for Nembhard and Turner, which I thought was very interesting. And then even when Turner came back, he made that big block, maybe a goaltend, got a couple rebounds. But I thought that was a situation where you got to be a veteran coach to feel that, understand that, and be willing to take the hit if it does not pan out ultimately. But to that point, guys, I would like to see some Jarris time just to see what that looks like. and how throwing him at different guys would help. Brunson may not be the guy I'm thinking about. It may be more like Bridges, Anunoby, and Josh Hart. But to the point of Jalen Brunson, I thought they did exactly what I expected in the first game, and that was, again, throw multiple bodies at him. By my count, 5 different guys spent a portion of the game. Nesmith, Nembhard, McConnell, Mathurin, and Shepard. All of them spent time on guarding Jalen Brunson, who finished with 43 points. Now, part of me thinks, doesn't this feel like last series where Donovan Mitchell had a 40-point game and then maybe a wasted 48, 49-point game? Feels like this was a wasted quality 40-point game by Jalen Brunson for the Knicks. You needed to win this if you were the Knicks, given he's a guy that can go off for 30 and 40 pretty handedly. So maybe he'll average 35 in the series against the Pacers. But that is definitely a big concern if you're the Knicks, I think. Did we just waste this big effort by Jalen at both ends of the floor? Can he make it through a whole series? The physicality that the Pacers play with, the pace that they play with, all those things are certainly on my mind. Gosh, a lot more comments here. I'll try to get to them. Lindy says, true, but you have to buy in. Yes, they believe in themselves. Absolutely. For sure. James, they have 978 instances of a team being down 14 with 2:50 left, including tonight. Tonight was the only time the team came back and won. There you go. There are so many remarkable stats. Some of them are so unheard of, kind of like this one, that you're like, seriously? Is that really right? 978 instances, and this is the first time a team has come back from 14 down with basically 3 minutes to go. Like that just sounds like a result that happens in a dream or something. Paver says, how am I going to get any work done tomorrow? Maybe by rewatching the broadcast, listening back to this on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. I don't know. I'm sure there's local sports radio that will be fun to listen to. If you're able to do that with your job in the background, that's probably how I would suggest it. Ryan, wow. Thank you, Scott. Is Miles Turner dealing with an injury? Seemed really slowed down. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. I think that was a chess move by the coaching staff to go smaller, to utilize that. And I think it paid off, at least based on what we saw, right? With Obi Toppin, he scored the last bucket of the game, that incredible dunk. Before that, he had a Mitchell Robinson. What are you doing? You are out there to rebound. He was out there for 8 rebounds, only made 1 bucket, only 1 field goal. He made it. He stood around and watched while Toppin went, got the rebound, and made the layup. I was like, what are you doing, Mitchell? Come on. We know why you're out there. But again, I thought it was a really good job by Toppin to just kind of maximize his minutes. And I thought TJ McConnell, by the way, if we're talking about bench players, had a really good, successful stint. I think it was in the second quarter, 10 points, kind of jolted up the offense a little bit when there was a lull, when they were outscored 33-28 there in that second quarter. Now he can play better. I think the entire bench can be better. I would also think you can see more from Benedict Mathurin, but he was 5 for 5 at the line. That's a positive. 5 of his 9 points scored there at the free throw line. You need more out of your Pacers bench to win this series, I think. And I say that because that's among their superpowers as well, right? The number one thing is endurance, wearing down their opponent, trying to be physical, chasing them down, not allowing full court pressure to bother them. But I think the other one there is their depth. And depth matters if you use it properly, if you can be efficient with it, if you can be productive with it. And it didn't seem to be the case in that first half, but it certainly was after that. But good luck. Yeah, Paver's getting work done. And no, Ryan, I do not think Miles is dealing with an injury. He played 32 minutes in this one, and I didn't see him lumbering by any means. Also, I can pass along after the game that Aaron Nesmith said, I'm fine. But he got hit, maybe knee to knee, a couple of times in that game and was clutching his right knee. But so far, he seems to be okay. Another quiet, effective Siakam game. Still waiting for a huge Siakam blow-up game, PJ said. Totally agree with you. This team has learned to close games, which has killed them last year against Boston. This year, they've closed well. Absolutely. I think it's something that really bothered them the last several years. And then this year, they've embraced it. They've loved on it. They love being and taking over their late in game and rallying back and only believing in themselves. To be fair, Knicks started playing sloppy in the fourth. They thought they had the game in the bag. It helped the Pacers look efficient, more safe with the ball. You're talking about the 0 turnovers for the Pacers. Yeah, that probably played into it. Knicks went up by 17. Brunson was on the bench with 5 fouls. He's one of your primary ball handlers. You get a little loose with the handle. You get a little too confident. And against this Pacers team, I can't believe teams are doing that anymore. You cannot get overly confident. Look, they were up by 9 with 1 minute left and lost the game. At this point, there should never be any confidence in doing that. And that's why you'll see an old school coach like Tom Thibodeau play his starters until almost the very end, knowing a team like the Pacers can come back and steal a game like this. All right, PVT. I just love the vibe of the team. Postgame was super chill. They expected it. Neesmith in the interview with Inside the NBA. I wasn't able to watch that. Busy writing my story and collaborating and getting it all done and tweaked a little bit to send out to subscribers at Fieldhouse Files. But yeah, that's who Aaron is. He's been waiting around for this. He always had that confidence. He just hadn't seen it from himself or from the team. Think about it. He was in the finals with the Boston Celtics. Now, he didn't really play, didn't have contributions on the court, but that's part of the reason he was so intrigued about coming to the Pacers, because it was a greater opportunity. More was going to be asked of him. And all that stuff that he watched and saw, he would now be able to take into effect and take ownership of. And so I thought he did a really good job of that. I think he's very mild-mannered. I think he's smart and deep thinking. And so I'm not surprised at all that Aaron apparently crushed his interview post-game. Good stuff. Yeah, MK, I passed along that quote from Carlisle. This is day 1 of 13 days. Going to need another strong first punch in game 2 to be ready for it, for sure. I don't like the fact that he was like, we're expecting another war coming up in game 2. I'm like, yeah, it's not quite a war. Let's not go that far. But I get the point. I get what he's getting at there, right? He also said he was fine with the celebration from Halliburton. And I would agree with that. Even if you're not going to say that publicly. But these guys are on the stage. They're continuing to deliver. You can't disrupt what makes them special. You can't disrupt the special sauce. And so I think that's probably, quite frankly, an area in which Carlisle has evolved, right? Him 15 years ago as a control freak, as a guy that wanted to have the final say, as a guy that wanted to draw things up, would not allow for that. I don't think he would tolerate it. Now he understands that's part of the business, and he's good with it as long as Ty keeps delivering for the team. Some people didn't like the commentators. I didn't mind them. I thought they were fine. Not my favorite crew, but I thought they were good. Much like the officiating, I think some fans are going to love it. Some are going to hate it. Some won't understand it. There's always going to be critiques, and usually the loudest ones are the ones that don't like it. So I get it. Quimono, Brunson alone had 7 turnovers. Yeah, good point. That's as many as the Pacers. And the Knicks missed 12 points at the free throw line. Yep, that was huge. I mean, OG makes both of them in the final 7 seconds, and more likely than not, the Pacers don't come away and force overtime. Now, given Ty wouldn't have probably attacked inside the arc if they definitely needed a 3 versus a 2 or 3 would have been just fine. So that changes things up a little bit. But still, man, you got to make your free throws. We saw it with the Fever last night. Missed 10 free throws and lost by 1. James says, I watched Neesmith being interviewed after the game, and even after all that, he's not winded. Tip of my hat to him. Tipping my hat to the trainers. Yeah, it's mostly on Neesmith, but the sports performance coaches definitely deserve some credit and getting them ready. But also, man, all these guys work on their own. These guys know what they need. That's what the team often will call a pro day when they don't have practices, won't have official practices. What they'll call it is a pro day, where you need to get what you feel like you need individually. Maybe you're not shooting well, so get some shots up. Maybe you need some one-on-one. Maybe you're feeling a little weak or soft. You want to lift some weights. Maybe it's cardio. They all have individualized plans, and they encourage the guys to get whatever they need there on those pro days. Drew says, Knicks looked like they handled the pace well early, and that had me worried. But late in the game, there were possessions where the Knicks looked gassed. Advantage Indy. Yeah, I thought that was a fair assessment. And they got sped up. They got a little panicked, got a little bit out of control. The full court press got to them a little bit, and the Pacers were able to take advantage because of that. So I agree with all those accounts, Drew. Welcome, Mr. Compton. Good to have you on here as usual. Siakam struggles feels like the reason the Pacers need to do these historic comebacks. I disagree with that. I don't think it's directly on Neesmith or Siakam rather. How I view Pascal is I think he needs to demand the ball earlier, meaning in the game. I also think the point guards, whether it's Halliburton or Nembhard, need to take a point to call his number out, to get him the ball on the block, back to the basket, square it up, and allow for him to find his rhythm earlier in the game. It's so often why the Pacers will call up a play for Miles Turner. If he gets it going, maybe knocks down a pick and pop three, top of the arc, for whatever reason, he's usually a little bit more productive in the game at both ends of the floor. Whereas I think too often, you look and it's the third quarter and Siakam just scored and now has 8 points in the game versus you'd like for him at that point to have, 18 and finish with 25 points. I think that would be the perfect number ideally for Siakam. I trust him in these big moments. I think he's been really positive and better than expected or advertised from a leadership standpoint in that locker room. I think he's done very well and been a huge contributor, no doubt. Knicks got lucky having an actor Brunson flop for a foul. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. I mean, I don't know about that. Watch on TNT with Reggie. I will definitely watch for sure. I got to watch it back coming up tomorrow. I want to see, especially that final quarter and overtime session, but really all of the game, because during the game I'm tweeting, I'm watching it. I got a second monitor. Really have 4 monitors in here. But I got my eyes on all these different things. I got a stat monitor as well. What I like to do is on my one computer, narrow focus, watch it back, and then take notes about what I see, because that's when you can really lock into the basketball standpoint. Whereas this, in live action, what I'm really doing is my job, jotting down keynotes, working on my story as we go, while also keeping people updated on social media. Again, the Pacers win in overtime, 138-135. Appreciate everyone jumping on my live post-game show. I go live after every single Pacers playoff game for the second straight year. Kevin says one of the biggest concerns for the Pacers coming in who would Halliburton guard. Seems like they found it in Hart, who wasn't looking to attack. Will be interesting to watch. Yeah, I think they tucked him on Hart, who's good for probably 12 rebounds per game, but yeah, he finished with 8 points, 3 of 6. He's good probably for a couple rebound tip-ins per game. But the matchups in this one are so interesting. Normally, I don't need to bother with writing that down, who's on who, but I absolutely did in this one because I was curious. It was Neesmith on Brunson, Nembhard on Hart, Siakam on Anunoby, Halliburton on Bridges to start the game, and then Turner, Karl-Anthony Towns. Obviously, things changed. There was cross matches and all those sorts of things, but those are a couple things that are definitely going to evolve throughout the course of what I think very well should and could be a 7-game series. Aaron, any shot Shepard gets as much run in the next game, or is Rick trying to get something out while down 10? I think he may have found something. I think you could probably find him 7 minutes. You gave him 14 tonight, and I think that was probably the direct result of the circumstances in the game, needing some life. You throw Shepard in there for defense and hard play. His superpower is hard play. He's going to dive on the floor. He's going to steal an inbounds. He's going to cause chaos in a good way. And so I think he's probably your 10th man, final guy of the rotation. Maybe you slip Jarris Walker in there, but I think he's the first guy out of the rotation right now. Why would you not want to discuss Brunson flopping around? He's a good player, but also true. Because too much of you fans get caught up in the officiating. If I remember which play you're talking about, it's with Neesmith, and I think they got it right that it was a foul on Neesmith. Then there was a flop on Brunson, but that didn't matter. They already called Neesmith. But I'm also very straightforward, factual, to the point, and so I don't think it's worth much conversation unless it's completely changed the game or it's just downright disgusting or anything like that. To me, it comes across as griping. When it was not a significant factor either. I thought officiating was just fine. Not great, not bad, just fine. But I will go back to my original point. The fact that the Pacers strategically deployed their challenges late in the game, 2 for 2, impactful, almost as impactful as what Aaron Neesmith did in that final 5 minutes when he knocked down 6 of 7 3-pointers. Do we have the Pacers transition point stats yet? I felt like the Pacers couldn't get out and run. I do. Pacers just 13 points in transition tonight. Knicks with 5. So they had the advantage, but it was nothing that significant. I think in a perfect world, they'd like to get 18 to 20 points in transition. It was something that they were a little slow in getting to. I think, especially as the game wore on, the game slowed down. That certainly favored the Knicks. They were able to get back into it later in the game when they strung together stops, picked off some steals from the Knicks, and then were able to convert. But I don't think that was as big a deal in this game. I hope Obi can remain a pacer after this season. Yeah, I can see why. The challenge becomes you got to pay Miles Turner. You got to solidify your center spot. If not him, who? But realistically, you're gonna have to go into the luxury tax, and you might be looking to move a player or two to make this roster a little bit more feasible. You maybe lose some of your depth, but you're able to upgrade. And I think Obi's an obvious name that's a possibility, but it's not because of his lack of performance. It's more because of his contract and his number, not what he's doing on the court. The other idea might be if you remove him from the equation, then maybe there's more of an opportunity for Jarris Walker, a lottery pick, a guy you drafted, those sorts of things. But I'm by no means suggesting or saying they should trade Top, and I can just get why it makes sense and why you were obviously concerned for those reasons. Saw this on X, the Indiana cramming Pacers. There you go. I'm not pointing out in play in general. It happens all game long, all season long. I grew up in the 80s. I think flopping from all the players is a problem. For sure. Yeah, I can understand that and respect that for sure. I don't think the NBA has done as good a job, Basil, over the last 10 years, let's call it, in enforcing that. Remember, like 5 years ago, they started assessing it after the fact. Like there would be warnings and then fines, generally speaking. They don't really do that too much. And so I always say players are going to stretch the limits as far as you allow them. So if you're getting the calls for doing it, why wouldn't you keep doing it, right? Same thing with Halliburton. If you're going to get fouled on this type of play, why wouldn't you stay at it? But yes, I agree. In all sports, flopping is quite annoying. Here's my gripe more than anything. It's those star players, when they get the call, then they still complain. And then when they don't get the call, they complain. That's probably my biggest thing. But this is too good of game and too good of comeback by the Pacers to spend too much time and energy on officiating and that type of thing. Soccer is the worst, though, by the way. When I played basketball as a kid, I was always told that even if the refs are wrong, they're right. Refs are human. Not every call will go your way. Calls will be missed. Exactly. And that's why, quite frankly, I've kind of moved against replay. I think it changes the momentum of the game. I can think you can stop a run. I think more often than not, they still don't get it right. So what are we doing wasting 3 minutes? I think perfect has become the enemy of a good game, where late in the game, you're sitting there standing around for 3 minutes. It's a 4-point game. A team has, scored 7 points in a row, and you're still not sure if they exactly got it right, or you got to slow it down to slow-mo to get it right. I think almost the replays for reviews should be watched in real time, and that's how they should be assessed. But anyway, I could go on and on about all this, but I feel like less is more in this situation. My only argument, though, I will say, is if you keep hitting on your challenges, why should you lose them? Just because the refs are wrong every time, you shouldn't be penalized. So, for example, Stephanie White last night in the Fever game, 2 for 2, didn't have a challenge later on. Tonight, Rick Carlisle, 2 for 2, didn't have a challenge super late there into like overtime or whatever because they were right. I guess the point is here, you don't want to give them an infinity amount of challenges or that could continue on, and you want them to utilize them in opportune times and such. But still, just because the officials miss a call and they have to correct it, I don't think a team should be penalized for that. But again, that's a whole different conversation. Is Miles Turner worth $30 million a year if he rides the bench like he did against the Knicks? Well, one, we don't know exactly just yet what Carlisle and the coaching staff was thinking, but generally, yes, he's absolutely worth roughly about that. That's what a going rate for a starting center is. He's been reliable. He's been productive. You know exactly who he is. He's been loyal to this franchise. So yeah, it's probably going to cost 25 to 32 million per year on average. How many years are you going to be able to get is the other thing. He's pushing, I think, 28. Maybe in a perfect world, you get a 2+1 type contract. But yeah, and we'll talk about this a lot more in the offseason, but especially given the injuries, Achilles injuries to James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson, I'm not sure where you turn for your center spot other than what you have already with Turner and Isaiah Jackson. The one other point, though, I will add is who are the Pacers bidding against? Because Brooklyn has money. I think San Antonio might be another one that has some money, but they're probably going to be involved in trades. So what the Pacers do not need to do is bid up the price when they're the only one bidding or whatever. There's going to be a limit for the Nets. No need to go above that, I feel like. But you want to make sure that Turner obviously is happy and feels valued is the other thing. I have more confidence in Toppin than I do in Jarris in most cases. For sure, but in different ways. I'm not expecting Toppin to go out and defend a guy like Josh Hart or OG Anunoby on the perimeter. I would expect Jarris to do that a little bit better. Now, on the other side, from an offensive standpoint, I would trust, I think, what Obi's able to produce more reliably. Now, Jarris has the three-point shot, a little bit more dependable, better than 40%. But those are all things this coaching staff will absolutely consider after game one, going into game two. Yeah, a lot of people agreeing with me on the replay. Doubt this happens, but saw Chuck asking Commissioner Silver to let Ty's dad in for games 3 and 4. I'd like to see that as well. He doesn't need to be courtside, but this is apparent. He didn't attack anyone. He made a mistake, should pay a penalty, and he has. But what's to keep him from being in a suite? To support his son and to be there. If Giannis doesn't have a problem with it, why should they? And maybe the penalty is he can't be courtside for one more season or something like that. But I hate for him to lose this family moment with his kid just because of that when he was just a proud father on the court. Although, again, I recognize some kind of penalty does have to be served. If you win your challenge, you should be able to keep it. I agree. But there probably has to be a stoppage because you don't want a team to have 8 challenges. At that point, you just need new officials. Kevin Nembhard getting little credit for taking over the game in overtime. Huge 3, step back bucket, layup, deflection. Yeah, his offense really came alive in that overtime session. You're absolutely right. I haven't really spent much time on overtime because of theatrics that it took to get them there. But yeah, in that overtime session, Nembhard 7 points, 3 of 4 shooting, 1 assist. So he assisted on one of the other 3 buckets scored by the Pacers as they outscored the Knicks 13-10 in that overtime session to get the win. But I'm glad you mentioned them. But I guess what it is probably is this team's much more reliant on Nembhard for his defense, the hard plays, that anything offense is just bonus and probably does not get the recognition he deserves. Totally agree, though. So well said there. As a Knicks fan, my heart was ripped out through my throat. Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. You thought bag was in hand. You were ready to go celebrate there in Manhattan. Up 17 with 6 minutes left. You're basically up double digits with the final minute. You're just counting ready for this game to be over with. And then the timeout usage and how that went out. And then you had the challenge again that Carlisle won. I think it was with about 17 seconds left. Yeah, it was a killer right there. Knicks fans got to feel good about the overall performance, but they also got to feel like, man, they just let this game slip through their hands. Again, a wasted performance, it felt like, from Brunson with 43 points. Those don't come every game. He's going to have high-scoring clips against the Pacers, but you hate to waste them, as I said earlier. Is there fan interference technical in the NBA, referring to John Hand giving the ball? I think you could have done something. I think that was more of a judgment play by Zach Zarba, saying, hey, look, you weren't going to get it anyway. But I did think of that immediately there, for sure. Should Cat have gotten a technical foul after touching James Johnson after hitting a 3? I don't remember that. But no, I don't remember that sequence, but those guys mess around and are probably talking stuff back and forth on the game. I don't want to force technicals, which gives away points unless it's truly needed. You know what I loved about this game? I didn't mention it post-game in my story, and I should have. This was a clean game outside of the challenges. No technicals, no flagrants, no delay of games. That was fantastic. So I want more of that. That's a good quality game. You got the game done in almost 3 hours, and that's with an overtime session. I hope at some point the game is the series, the Pacers get ahead enough for James Johnson to step in and hit a mid-range jumper. There you go. Funny stuff right there. All right, well, I think I'm gonna wrap this one up. We're well after 1 a.m. here on Thursday now. Appreciate everyone jumping on, more than 100 of you at a time here as the Pacers get it done in overtime. Stunning fourth quarter comeback, down by 17, and complete an improbable comeback. Their third time coming back from at least 7 points with like 45 seconds to go in this postseason. They've done a remarkable job and have done a great job in getting to this point. And even though it shouldn't be necessary, there they are to deliver the theatrics there late on TNT. Game 2 coming up Friday night. Every game on TNT, every game at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you missed any of this, you can watch the replay. I encourage it at 2 times speed. Same goes. I'll post it on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. But what an incredible victory for the Pacers. I thought it was a really fun and fascinating game. I thought the Knicks were going to pull away with it, as everybody did. And then there come the pesky Pacers to finish them off. And then, as you guys said, Nembhard delivering there in overtime. And that's what you love about this team. Fans got to love how it could be any guy contributing in a matter of different ways. Nembhard in overtime, Toppin in overtime, Halliburton's game-tying shot to force overtime. And then, of course, as I've mentioned many times, Aaron Nesmith and the job he did as well to score 20 of his 30 points in that fourth quarter. That wraps up this live post-game show. I appreciate everybody joining me, and I will talk to you again very soon. Have a great night and morning, no matter where you are, guys.